wanted to use
Really short.
And at the macro level, the big story here is that this growing marriage divide is eroding the American dream. It's tied to stagnating family incomes. It's tied to growing family income inequality. It's tied to declines in male employment. And as we heard this morning, as Raj Chetty's work at Harvard suggests, it's tied to lower economic mobility for poor kids in communities across the United States. So that's sort of the macro story, and an important one, obviously, at that. How does this play out at the micro level? For kids, what we're showing basically is that kids who are raised in intact married families are more likely to steer clear of events like a premarital birth that would limit or derail their future economic opportunities. We're seeing that kids from intact families are more likely to acquire the human capital they need to flourish in today's labor market. And then, of course, later in life to work more hours and earn more money as young adults. And I want to underline the sort of the notion here, or the fact here, that we've been talking a lot lately about women's opportunities in the marketplace today. And what we're finding here is that women who are being raised in stable two-parent families are more likely to flourish professionally in today's labor market. So I think the family has to be part of our broader conversation about work and family here in the US. Then looking more particularly at sort of marriage and men, this is a point that was articulated, I think, brilliantly by George Akerlof in his piece on men and families a number of years ago. What we see here is that marriage seems to transform men, that they work more hours, they work more strategically, as my colleague EVA Liz Gorman has found, and they earn more money when they're married compared to being single. And that this marriage premium continues to exist today, even in an era that's much more egalitarian, which suggests this is not really about gender specialization per se, it's about the ways in which marriage and a relationship helps make men settle down, to use George Akerlof's words, and to become more strategic and on average more productive in their workplace. And when it comes to women, what we're finding is that marriage does not exact a penalty on women's personal income, and actually gives them a substantial premium when it comes to their family income. And new work by Jane Waldfogel at Columbia suggests also today that the motherhood penalty, the sort of fabled motherhood penalty, is actually lowest among married mothers, who of course can share the challenges and blessings of raising kids with a committed partner there in the picture. I also just want to also highlight the point that Bob Lerman mentioned earlier, and that is that we have a lot of discussions today when it comes to economic mobility, economic success, poverty, incarceration, teenage pregnancy, about the ways in which race and ethnicity and education help to structure these important social, economic, and public outcomes. But we don't, I think enough or talk enough about the ways in which family structures these outcomes. And we find in our work here that the family factor, whether it's family structure or marriage, is often as powerful or almost as powerful as are things like education, race, and ethnicity in predicting young men and women's income or their family income, as these two slides suggest. So the point I'm making here is we need to kind of reintroduce the family factor in our public conversation about these important outcomes and issues. And the next two slides, from different studies are also indicative of this. We find in work that Sarah McLennan at Princeton has done, for instance, that family structure is as powerful predictor of young men's incarceration as is race. And you would never get that from a public conversation about incarceration in America. Or that, once again, a major predictor of teen pregnancy in the US is family structure growing up. So my point here simply is to say we need to think about how family structures, not just economic success in America, but a broader array of outcomes that are part of our public conversation today in the US. To wrap up this section, what we're suggesting today is the family factor seems to be about as, or almost as important as race, ethnicity, and education in shaping the odds of realizing the American dream, and that the growing marriage divide in America is a major source of social and economic inequality, and is one largely unheralded force eroding the American dream.